I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Dylan Kawalec, the head of developer relations at Goat Network. Dylan, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Ashton. Yeah, I'm very excited to break down some Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, Bitcoin is all the rage. Even the president is getting involved of the United States, talking at the upcoming Bitcoin conference that I know you and your team are going to be attending as well. I feel like Bitcoin is in the spotlight for a lot of reasons, not just because the Bitcoin ETF issuance at the beginning of the year has been the most successful in history, not because institutions are continuing to buy billions of dollars worth, and also Ethereum and the rest of the crypto coins, I feel like are next in line for that. But Bitcoin specifically, I feel like has a little bit of catching up to do because there's a lot of functionality that can be unlocked on the Bitcoin network with layer twos, with other ecosystems to potentially bring more functionality that could tap into a lot of extra value, I feel like, for Bitcoin. And I think your team is playing a role in making that happen as well. So I'd love to start off our conversation by just getting a sort of a high level on what you and your team are building at Goat Network, how that relates to Bitcoin, and then we can dive into all the latest details.
Yeah. Where to begin? I mean, it all started with the BitVM white paper. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
we started from like the how is it that we can improve like actual sustainability on Ethereum because we have wrapped Bitcoins and we're, doing a lot of things with Bitcoin nowadays, but the asset themselves, they have to stay and they have to defragmentize themselves, right? We have to get through this problem of having fragmented liquidity all over the place. And so Bitcoin being a super hard asset, being an extremely secure asset, and also just being something that anyone can rely on as far as like being a money supply. Well, if you do like a stake of some kind, you're going to want to do a stake of like a very extremely hard asset.
Mm-hmm.
And so the differences between us and I would say others, it kind of dives into this realm of like how secure is the Bitcoin if we have it at any point, off chain, on chain. We think a lot on this topic, on building an architecture that will suit the needs for the average staker, the holder. They want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that their asset is kept tight. So that's sort of the approach. But again, we all start from Bitcoin scripting. We start from there and we move our way up through many different systems.
Mm-hmm. And how can the the ecosystem increase the liquidity, lower the fragmentation of Bitcoin to make it more efficient?
Well, to make it more efficient, go in our network and really the team behind a lot of the innovations in the space like with Metis, and they actually said, hey, let's make a decentralized sequencer. Let's go all in on how we stake to Bitcoin itself rather than having to offload a separate deposit address or doing anything when it comes to like off-chain indexing of some sort of like wallet where the bridge is completely in control between two trusted actors. It's like, well, we needed to decentralize the stake, right? And have as many sequencers indexing and sequencing to and from Bitcoin. And there we can create a one-to-one asset type with Bitcoin that's then an Ethereum compatible token, similar to like a bond. Like if you're going to be issued something, I'm going to IOU later, but because you're staking to a like a record effectively like on Bitcoin, since it's a record chain, we can add in these scripts thanks to the way that BitVM has sort of laid out this methodology, I'd say. And then we do as many security checks as far as how is it that we're actually maintaining the stake itself on Bitcoin without centralizing the point of control for all of the stake, right? Instead of one trusted actor, there's many decentralized trusted
Mm-hmm.
actors that have instead of like a consensus, they have a shared sequence that is staked, and the stake is pretty high, about 100 Bitcoin. But we're serious, it's you can't just do this with a little tiny bit.
Hmm.
You have to make sure that people are not going to be incentivized to go against the network. And so we look at it on this level between decentralized sequencers, Bitcoin, that then can bridge over to our Ethereum layer 2 that is a Geth module. So I hope that sort of explains the connection there between a Bitcoin sequencing system and sets of systems that go into what Goat doing. Yeah, Goat isn't a layer 2 Ethereum token. Like it's an ecosystem, which is a great choice because we get to
Hmm.
have a lot of ease of use with Ethereum. And it's
Hmm.
Ethereum all the way. Ethereum, we're very bullish on Ethereum too. So
Yeah, no, I'm also very bullish in anticipating the launch of the Ethereum ETF potentially, and they feel like they keep pushing the date back, but it's supposed to be could be this week, could be this quarter. I feel like eventually here it's inevitable at this point. It's just a matter of when it happens, and I feel like that's going to get institutions more interested in the layer twos as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I think the interest around Bitcoin is like the highest for most institutional investors, especially for a lot of users, especially for global activity. If we want to have like global peer-to-peer like systems, we also want to make sure that we can play with those peer-to-peer systems in other ways, such as GameFi, such as
Mm,
DeFi, such as automated marketplaces. Like we want to be able to use the real money supply or the real digital money supply and then be able to securely use that asset in other ways. And we also want to make sure that we're delivering a sustainable yield to those protocols. It's much different than just saying that it's a wrapped token. It's
mhm,
better to say that, hey, now your assets have this sustainable yield continuously coming in. And so users and sequencers are rewarded alike for that because Bitcoin is consistent. There are still 3 million tokens to be mined. There is a long history that has happened, and then there is a even longer history to happen. So it's what makes Bitcoin such a great option for staking to then solidify and secure a network through decentralized sequencers, whereby we create and mint and make asset that is Bitcoin on Go.
mhm.
And I still haven't asked the team, did we name it because it's the greatest of all time? It's a good idea. And it's a great, it's a great, it's a great idea. And there's
Yeah.
other teams that are working on the same problem too. So I'm excited about what other people actually come up with and how they do it. We just think that sustainable yields and secure decentralized sequencing is the better approach to staking an Ethereum node to a Bitcoin ledger.
Hmm. No, I definitely think decentralized sequencing is the way to go. And you mentioned your team. How long have you and your team been working on this now? And where sort of exactly are you at in terms of where you hope to be?
Well, for as long as I known the team, this project actually goes way further back than others. Lots of the team they had built a lot of the technology in and around like have you ever heard of the ZKM network? They focused
Hmm.
on how do we build a zero knowledge virtual machine first, whereby we can create a prover network that is similar to what we see, what's going on, which I played a lot with, doing some systems engineering for Alio and had also been doing a lot of things with like TEE supports and these sort of AVS systems that are like sort of these trusted confidential ledgers or off-chain working environments that generate these zero knowledge proofs that can then pass them between prover and verifier networks. And so this is a great setup where we can have a proof system now that is entangling our rollup with other blockchains. So this technology is the back end to the back end of our network, and the network of optimistic rollup also connecting to other layer 2 rollups is the supreme idea of connecting all layer 2 rollups within an
Hmm.
entangled rollup scheme through this prover network that can generate and verify proofs across all these chains using this zero knowledge virtual machine. So that's the stuff that I'm really looking forward to, because that stuff is like Cosmos. That stuff can be Solana. That stuff can be really anything because of the MIPS prover. So that's just like a little bit of an insight on how far the team has come from, because that is the thing that's being instilled into this system. So layer two Bitcoin, go right. The what is this new layer two for Ethereum is, I think, the open question. It's like, well, it's an entangled rollup system that is connected to Ethereum, but it's staked to Bitcoin through a decentralized sequencing network. And then we secure the stake of the network through Bitcoin, but we get you the really the flexibility of Ethereum. And then you get the fairness, the cheapness, right? Like the usability of an optimistic rollup. So using our optimistic challenging system, which basically always keeps everybody in check. So that way the sequencers are not incentivized to collude. So it's a very, big Bitcoin over here, got a big L2 over here, and you got a lot of connections through a prover network. So you have this very large scale network. It's taken years, I think, for the team, really, of many teams coming together, having a great idea, talking to a lot of partners, and then saying, "Yep, it's time. It's time to put Bitcoin on full blast and see where we can take this." And Ethereum is the answer, right? Ethereum is not going anywhere. Ethereum is extremely flexible for the everyday user, everyday developer in so many different ecosystems around the world. So it's a great option. There's going to be other ones like in Solana, but that's why we have the prover network, so we can be in Solana, or we can be in Cosmos. Let's have a unified, layer two in this sense, and this is the long-term vision. So as far as Go is concerned, it's been around not that long, but we've been busy at work for a long time.
Yeah. No, it's great insights. And with staking Bitcoin to help secure other networks as well, you mentioned about sustainable yields. When you're looking at sustainable yields with GOAT, from what I understand, you're staking Bitcoin, but you're not necessarily receiving the yields in Bitcoin, or which assets are the potential to receive that yield in?
Yeah, so it creates a new yield generating opportunity for the Bitcoin holder. So I want to start from that perspective. So the holder, and to answer your question, like how is it that we generate a sustainable yield, is a tough question. We have a really talented team of advisors that are effectively like really kind of laying out the ground floor right now, and a lot of the details we're going to be releasing in very soon. It's actually on our website, but I've actually been with the team for probably less than a week now, actually. So I don't want to speak more than I know of, but from what I can see is that there's a sustainable yield because of how it is effectively being staked to the Bitcoin script. And then we are submitting and generating proofs to the BitVM script, whereby we are effectively doing our commitment and settlements between our prover and then the Bitcoin verifier. So there is a prover verifier relationship between the decentralized sequencer and then the Bitcoin stake that they have to that script. And now that is the sequencer who has to then stake. Now, as far as the user is concerned, they would just stake GOAT BTC to then a sequencer, whereby then the sequencer is then generating a yield on that Bitcoin, and then returning it in the form of GOAT, and then creating other like bond assets, like what we say is YBTC and these other primitives that are then being created so that we have a one-to-one relationship with Bitcoin to every GOAT BTC token. And then we have bonded and yield assets that are then minted there through. And you can stake your Bitcoin layer 2 directly to the network. And then you can have the ability to withdraw it at a faster time period to get either YBTC token, or, and then the other way is that, of course, you just, as the user, you're staking directly to the sequencer, and thereby there's a lockup period, and then how much you're earning from the shared sequencer basically generating proofs for the layer 2 network. So as often as a layer 2 network submits proofs to a layer 1, in this case with layer 2 to a layer Ethereum, relationship of these like fraud proofs that we see from like optimistic rollups or validity proofs and so on. The proof submission is the reward also on that return. So as often as Ethereum is being used is the amount in which generated yield then is accrued. So this is I'm going to get too financy and techy if I keep going down this route, but effectively you get to stake to a sequencer or you get to stake to the network. And
Mm-hmm.
then either case is Bitcoin, and you bridge your Bitcoin first if you want to bridge and then deposit for a quick withdrawal, where you can directly do it through Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can do it the sequencer and generate your yields this way. Now, building a DApp on this is the combination of both of these ideas, where you have deposited Bitcoin and restaked, these Bitcoin Go assets to then generate these YBTC yields, which are being created and minted on the network for a sustainable, long-term yield generation. So this is my understanding of where it can go, right? Um, and we're looking for really talented, of course, protocol engineers who want to start openly thinking about, well, how do we make a generated, sustainable Bitcoin yield in our applications? Because like if I have an automated marketplace, I would love to offer a greater return on their lend. If especially
Mm-hmm.
if I'm Aave, right? If I'm Aave, I want to be able to offer borrowers more than what they originally lent me. So this is the idea that we're requesting, developers and us have open conversations about, like, how do we improve dApps and making them all sustainable. And I know many projects out there want to understand sustainable drivers in Bitcoin, especially in
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum, like VeChain. They highly promote the idea of sustainable, econ driven, very green, carbon tax credits, right? If we want to be able to build these new sustainable markets, what's a reliable market? Well, Bitcoin is a very reliable money market, actually. So we can actually create these protocols that have these sustainable driving activities, like a DAO that is doing something for the earth or doing something for a public good or a community or a DeFi project or a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the future that we can start seeing happening with Bitcoin layer 2.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting, and I appreciate that differentiation, and I understand. Yeah, there's two ways to go about it, and that you can do more long-term strategies, and obviously, the longer that you go in, the potential to be rewarded more. If you're just looking to put it in for a short amount of time, it helps, but it's not. I feel like smart investors in Bitcoin are the smartest ones, are in for multi-year investment horizons, if not multi-decade investment horizons. We're still so early, as you mentioned at the beginning. We've had a great history of Bitcoin in the past 15 years, but even the amount of supply is going to be trickling in for the next 120 years. And then after that, there will still be miners mining for fees and beyond, hopefully thousands of years. So we're really at the very beginning. Um,
Exactly.
what do you think about the readiness for Bitcoin Layer 2 to reach the large early adopters? Because of the ETF issuers, we've seen a lot of new entrants that have more capital come into Bitcoin this year. And also, there's a lot of people that have had Bitcoin for the past 15 years that are looking for utilization or functionality of some sort. Do you think a large percentage of those would be interested in getting onto a layer 2 like Goat?
Absolutely. I think most people want to learn how to spend money in different ways, and they want new methods of generating a yield. And I think this interests most people. But like just like when you started using crypto, it's always scary, to open your first wallet and to do things with your Bitcoin. And so like there's a lot of these new systems that are going to be coming out, and I would just highly advise that, before you invest in anything, right? Like, this is not financial advice, but if you're going to invest in anything, make sure that 100% your Bitcoin is secure.
Hmm.
Make sure that you have, enough assurances with the people that you're especially sending your money to. Like you don't want to send your money to a wallet that's just going to like self stake for you. That doesn't make any sense. Like it's like if you're going to do a simple swap, well, it's like you're of course trusting an off-chain server, but in this case, in this off-chain manner, you're going to be sending not to one address. In our case, you're sending to a decentralized sequencer that anyone can sign up for and then host our network. And then you can always assure that they are not incentivized to create a fraud proof that is going to double sign or attack the network because they have 100 and even more Bitcoin staked to the network. So you want those assurances that every consensus protocol offers, like a proof of stake, where the stakes are actually high, where
Hmm.
the stakes are of risk to no one else other than the sequencers, and your deposit alone exists, though on Ethereum is a Bitcoin. Yes, your Bitcoin is being staked in this case by a sequencer, and you as the user have one or two options. Do I, as the investor, need to invest on a yield generating, yield bearing interest in this case, or am I going to just invest on like just any token and see whatever comes out of it? It's like, well, I separate it into, are you going to just get any token, or are you going to use Bitcoin, which is the hardest asset that has a long, long livelihood of being used and being utilized well. And if you believe in the Bitcoin network, it's really important to know that Bitcoin has always had smart contracts.
Hmm.
BitVM is just a methodology of creating scripts in which your assets are used for very specific hash time lock, and the hash of a time lock allows the contract on another network to sequence events from the Bitcoin network to another network. So Bitcoin can be used in the very, very similar way where the Bitcoin doesn't necessarily move out of your control. You're staking, you have the ability to unstake with a hash time lock, and that hash time lock is determined by the Bitcoin script, which is on the Bitcoin network. So there's no fooling Bitcoin unless you can fool every miner, which is yet to be proven. So I would challenge the hacker, please hack Bitcoin, but you won't, because the challenge and the mathematics behind physically, is it possible? We are open and curious about the ideas of quantum resistance in Bitcoin, but still, yet again, like you're going to have to find the nonce of every new difficulty target across every single new block, within a very specific time frame. So if you don't understand the Bitcoin security protocol, which is how proof of work was designed, and
Hmm.
why Bitcoin is still the same Bitcoin that it's been since it's been created, it's been having improvements. Lightning Network was an improvement to a Bitcoin node, and then there were other improvements, and so now layer two is the improvement, thereby using scripts to then make an improvement of the token itself. Now, the token doesn't move away from Bitcoin. The token is used in scripts on Bitcoin, sequenced by other operators
Hmm.
who then make promises that are either centralized or decentralized. In our case, it's decentralized, and thereby there is a consensus, in a sense, to Ethereum and then to the stake of Bitcoin, where the highest of risk, which is 100 Bitcoin, which I think Ethereum is what, 33 now Ethereum. So the risk must be very high by many decentralized provers, sorry, in this case, sequencers who are proving and verifying between each other through optimistic challenges, is did you sign correctly? And if you
Hmm.
sign correctly, Bitcoin can act as a very great validity layer, which it is because it's a record chain, and we can post these records that, hey, we're actually producing and proving blocks and submitting our batch proofs, to the system called a Bitcoin. And if you just externally look at Bitcoin as, is it a good enough safety protocol for us to stake our network stake of? I would agree, and I would immediately mark that as saying yes. That's probably the
Hmm.
better idea because the risk is higher because the asset is the digital money supply. and it's the most decentralized money supply. So we're out here trying to figure out what do the Bitcoin community what do they want right now that
Mhm.
we have your asset on Bitcoin, we can do scripts on Bitcoin. Where else can we go with this? We sped up Bitcoin. We can do other things such as zero knowledge proofs. We proved this through Zcash, and there was iterations through Monero. I worked with teams from Discrete Labs that took it even further, where they bridged a ZKM UTXO to a ZK EVM. Um, and so these ideas can extend the range of not only Ethereum but also of Bitcoin.
Mhm. Very interesting, Dylan. And if I say I had a small amount of Bitcoin in a cold storage wallet, I wanted to get started in staking and exploring through Goat Network. How can I get started?
Well, wait for our campaign. We're going live with our test net pretty soon, so I'm going to encourage that most people, try it out. It's an EVM, it's a Geth node. You can write all your contracts in Solidity. It's super easy to launch. We have you can launch it through Remix, Hard Hat. Use all of your favorite tools. We're going to be having an RPC, like an endpoint that should be openly accessible, ready and available soon, so that you can start sequencing and effectively mining the network, because we're interested in to see what people can do for DeFi mining now that they have an entire Bitcoin protocol at their fingertips. So when can you get access to it? As soon as you're ready. We're having communications right now with a whole bunch of teams. So there's no time like the present, right? So
Definitely. And is
yeah.
there a social platform that's more predominant on where developers and users can find out about more about it, and also when it gets released so they can figure it out right away?
Yeah, goat.network. That's our website. We're going to be pushing a lot of documentation and updates there. You can subscribe to a newsletter, also to some like our Twitter is out there. Our Twitter, we have it at here. I found it. Goat.network. If you just look up, I think it's Goat Network, all capital. Yeah, Goat Rollup. So GOAT Rollup. That's our Twitter. We're going to be posting a lot of new updates there too. And then we're also going to be formulating, this is where I come in, going to be making that, that Bitcoin community on Discord. We're going to go for
Hmm.
Discord. There's going to be a Telegram. So we're still growing. It's still early, so you're not late. Would love to work with you, and would love to see what your ideas are.
Amazing, Dylan. And I love to be early, and I think the viewers love to be early as well. And this sounds like an incredible technology and technological update for Bitcoin with a lot of potential. So I'm excited to follow along with the team and see how it develops. I will leave the link to the Goat Network site and the Twitter and the socials in the show notes below as well. Wishing you and your team all the best on this, and I would love to follow up in the near future when you guys are at the next stage.
Yeah, thank you, Ashton. We're probably planned. It's for later this year. I'll have more details for everybody, but thank you so much for your time. And really, really, really enjoyed this conversation.